Hi, guys, and welcome to Donation Win, the show where I talk about books I'm about to go donate that I enjoyed. So, I already reviewed Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, two solid manga. During my last trip to Goodwill, I got a few like $1 books for fun. And what's kind of interesting about these two is I was never an Image guy. I'm now getting like a smattering of Image now that I'm buying used and old books, and I'm starting to get the appeal. But I thought these two might actually be kind of like a good illustration of why it was hard for me to get into Image. So I think the problem for me as a little kid trying to get into Image was the feeling that it was not Spider-Man or not X-Men. And New Men definitely has the problem of New Men. I just translate that in my mind to not X-Men. And we got Eric Stevenson writing. I think Rob Liefeld did earlier issues, but this one's penciled by Todd Nauck, and inkers are Norm Rapmund and Larry Stucker. And the art is just adequate. It has some of like the foibles of 90s art, like feet mysteriously hidden in puddles of water. And, like I thought this angle was kind of boring. 1, 2, 3, similar positioning, like not a whole bunch of details in the grass and stuff. But it's like fun, adequate comics. But I'll show you kind of like the mental problem. So I look at that and I say, not Bishop. And I look at this and I say, it's not Cable and not Wolverine Beast, who are going to go get the New Men. Now, that being said, because the Image was kind of created by a lot of artists, a great exodus of good artists from Marvel to new books and new careers, that kind of changed the comic book industry. And so kind of what I've learned to appreciate about Image is like books that really emphasize the artist. Even the name Image implies that they put the artist first and the power of the sequential image first. The old Image had a brand of comics that are all about the art, and New Image is now like random indie books and Derek Larson, who, hey guys, whatever you do, don't retweet that one comic I did where children commit unspeakable acts on each other. He really did that. You broke my heart, Eric Larson senpai. But anyway, they do like the thing where like the New Men, kind of like the X-Men, the team roasts each other and makes fun of each other, and then they kind of like have a talk and work it out. And they kind of make the point that the leader's a little dumb and inexperienced, and that someone's going to have to pull their butt out of the fire. It's a completely standard, okay little indie field book, and then like the letters talking about all the questions about all the new characters. So that's the kind of thing where I wouldn't get into it, because the thing about me is I'm a Spidey-Man guy, and there's actually this principle in economics where if you can be the first to do something, it becomes easier for you to have domination over it for generations, because people associate with it. If you're the first person to deliver pizza in 30 minutes or less, Domino's, then you've sort of created a new demand for pizza that arrives super speedy. But then everybody does that, and you've got to compete with them on someone else. So the thing about Marvel is, because Marvel created Spider-Man, then Marvel has a monopoly on Spidey-Man books. And there's a demand for Spidey-Man books because people are actually invested in Spider-Man. If you go over to Image and you make the Spectacular Arachnid Boy, I don't really care about the Spectacular Arachnid Boy. So you either have to pitch it as, this is the Spider-Man story I would tell if I could use Spider-Man, or you've got to shake things up. And I just, it's a little, even though I kind of respect, how they made like attempts at having, like emotional back and forth between the team, I just keep seeing not X-Men. Now, the Kindred has a similar problem where I look at this and I say, okay, that's not Deadpool and not Deathstroke the Terminator / Cable, whatever. But this is one where the art starts selling you on it. So Jim Lee wrote, a lot of guys wrote, Jim Lee, Brandon Choi, Brett Booth, Sean Ruffner on story, pencils Brett Booth, inks Sal Regla. And I've never heard of Brett Booth and Sal Regla, but the art style really kind of, you can tell that they're like learning at the feet of Jim Lee and borrowing a lot from him. This was a dope comic, so a lot of like, ham-fisted exposition just to get you caught up on what's going down, and some like roasting the commander. And one of the letters columns pointed this out, but it was superheroes where the superpowers were kind of subtle, and there was more emphasis on action, where their powers might come up in the battle, but they're not really doing a lot of meta discussion, like, with my super duper laser, I will overheat your super ooper laser, right? It's more like tactical espionage kind of stuff. And the art, Spider-Man style, whips flying everywhere, a fast-talking merc named Grifter with his cool guns. And okay, this page. I've really been on a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kick because I've never seen a manga artist who draws like Hirohiko Araki. And the reason I keep saying manga fans should read Western comic books and Western comic book fans should read manga is you start seeing innovations and ways of doing things that might not occur to people who are in their own bubble. So the thing about this page is this kind of feels like a Hirohiko Araki page where everything is over the top, like the poses are all twisted to the extreme. I even like the little blood splatter up there just so we don't have like a big empty white space. They just filled it with something since the wing stopped there. And it wouldn't surprise me if Hirohiko Araki, in addition to like reading Renaissance books, also looked at a lot of like 80s superhero books for his inspiration. Because if you just look at one industry, you'll see them kind of like borrowing or copying the same techniques from each other, which can be interesting in and of itself. You're seeing artists develop and respond to other artists, but it's kind of interesting to get out of a bubble and then hop over to a different bubble and see maybe what's going on the other side of the continent. But anyway, like the appeal of this comic is just great, solid, over-the-top art. All of like the conventions of the time, like this crazy expressive brushwork panels. There's like, oh, there's a beautiful lady who's been captured, and they think he's some kind of bad guy. There's a really cool big pinup by Ryan Benjamin and Todd McQueenie. Look at that. These were so fun. You could rip these out and ruin your comic book and hang them up on the wall. Big giant monsters with spikes everywhere. There's one page I really want to show. Where is it? Okay, so there's like a misunderstanding where Grifter is chasing them around. And the beautiful thing about comics is you can sort of understand it even without reading it. So like the team's checking the computers and then spikes around here to say, oh, surprise, someone's missing, something happened. Now, if you wanted to accidentally like hop down here and read out of order, black bar kind of stops you. So you bounce back here, oh, the Grifter, and then they get ready to fight. And then the black bar pulls you down behind here into the action this way. So the even though the normal tendency is left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, this is helping you go this way, and then you know to read that way. So I just love things like that. This is what comics does that no other medium does. That is a very problematic, but in fact, I don't believe that it is realistic to draw a human figure in that style. You know what I think we should do? I'd like to see you draw Hawkeye in that pose. You wouldn't, because that would simply reveal the power of the patriarchy on 90s comics. I can't do that with a straight face anymore. All comics from the 90s were over the top. All comics from the 90s were unrealistic. That was the fun. That was the point. So, aliens, cool dudes fighting together. Look at this nerd. What an amazing nerd. So he just talks about, like, he's getting you prepped for what's coming next. He apologizes for the book being late. He lets you know that the last issue is going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's going to be a 32-page climax. So they're talking to the fans. They're like recognizing, hey, fans, we get it. You don't want to pay more for a comic. You're unhappy when we're late. We're going to talk to you like we care about you because we just kind of want you to be ready for what's coming down the pipeline. And boy, you're going to be excited for it. Good job. Professionalism. Letters, columns, and like all these cool observations about what they're doing. This was a excellent comic. This is a comic that was just very simple, straightforward. Like, I don't know the deep psychology of the Grifter and Backlash or whatever, or what their Marvel inspirations were. But by putting all of this emphasis on the art, that was kind of the point. So my point with this one was, if you don't have Spider-Man, it's kind of hard for you to do not Spider-Man. Marvel owns a monopoly on Spider-Man books. You get people invested in the characters over years and years of work. This is the example of a book that could actually help to get you invested in these characters because the quality is so pronounced. You read it for the quality at first, and if you read enough books in a row for the quality, then you become invested in the franchise and the characters. So, but no franchise can beat Pokemon. Anyway, manga always wins. Actually, no. This was a pretty tight contest. Read your Western books, read your manga, buy them cheap. Get them at the library. Check out your like used donation bin piles, your free little library system. There are comics all over the world for you to read for free or cheap. And read what you like. When you find something you really like, read more of that. Buy the thing that is like the most special book you've read all year so you can read all of the thing that really touched you and moved you emotionally. That's it. Number one Marmaduke fan. Donation win. To the library you go. Like, comment, subscribe, click the bell to receive notifications. Make sure you are still subscribed. Thank you to my subscribers on Subscribestar. You're helping me to afford comics and make videos for this channel. Thank you to my Super Chat donators. I love you guys. I'll catch you later. 10 minutes. Take that, YouTube algorithm.